Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. When I started this podcast in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women business owners, creatives, and entrepreneurs. In each episode, my guests provide resources, valuable tips, and inspiration. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strength to achieve success on their own terms. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I am so glad that you could join us today. And I'm going to get started with introducing my guest. Angela Randolph is the founder and CEO of Stellar Ledgers LLC, a financial advisory firm that serves small business owners across the United States. Their core offering includes outsourced CFO and controller services, financial consulting, coaching, and education for small businesses. Angela has managed the finances for multi-million and billion-dollar Fortune 500 companies, advising senior executives for key strategic planning and execution in response to market demand, competition, internal environmental factors, etc., to lead the organization to more profits and achieving the company's goals. She is passionate about using the skills and expertise she has accumulated throughout her professional career to help women entrepreneurs achieve their financial goals with their business. So welcome to the show, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deborah. I appreciate it.
So before we get started to talk about our topic today about growing and scaling your business, I noticed I was looking through your website and everything, and you have just done so much, and it's definitely something that can't just be put into an introduction. So could you please just share with us a little bit about how you got started in the work that you're doing?
So I got started about 5 years ago. I wanted to help small business owners with their bookkeeping. And I was doing it on the side as I was working full time as a tax auditor. And it really just kind of grew into more of an advisory, financial coaching. I'm working on an online course, my second one, because I discovered that financial education was needed. And then also a lot of people needed advice on not just the technical part of doing the bookkeeping, but they also needed financial advice and tax advice around their business. So I really, I enjoy doing that. I'm doing it full time now. And I really have a special place in my heart for women entrepreneurs. I definitely want to see more women-owned businesses be profitable and have them be able to build wealth and have financial freedom and security through entrepreneurship.
Well, that's great. Great to hear. And I think that for a lot of people who start out, they really don't understand everything that they have to do in regarding finances and accounting and things like that. So that's such an important service to offer to people, and also offering that so they can understand what's going on, because this is just something that often you don't hear mentioned enough when people talk about starting a business. From what, my perspective, as far as seeing people talk about online, then they're kind of focused on just kind of getting it out there quickly and maybe focus more on the marketing and the branding, and that's great. But then this part, they kind of, don't really look at as much, or they're not really hearing the importance of that, I think, when they start.
Right. That's so true. And a lot of times what happens, in fact, someone reached out to me last week. They're trying to get funding. And of course, with bankers, alternative financing, investors, they want to see financial statements. They want to see projections. There's a financial component in your business plan. And if your books are in disarray, or you've never kept your books from the start of your business to where you are now, it can be challenging to kind of go back and recreate
Mm-hmm.
what has transpired and to get yourself up and ready before the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity passed. So I see that a lot. And I always try to tell business owners from day one, you want to start tracking your transactions and your finances and keep up with everything, even if you have to do it yourself. And then when you get to a stage in your business where you're ready to outsource that, then do that. That way, when opportunities come about for funding, you already have those historical financials that you can present and you'll be better positioned to do forecasts, projections, and things like that.
Mm. Well, that's wonderful advice for people to receive because they need to do that from the beginning as opposed to later. I'm sure that it's just not good when you're trying to go back after so much time has passed.
Right, exactly. And if you're commingling personal transactions with business transactions, that could be cumbersome as well to separate those out so you can see how the business is actually performing.
Well, yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So when it comes down to growing and scaling, I thought this would be a great topic because again, we hear so much about growing your business and all that. And I think a lot of times people don't really hear the second part, the scaling and the things that you have to do to make it, more than just the way you started out, and that's great, but where are you going with that? I don't think that, again, that's not something that often gets talked about seriously. So, when you say that, what do you mean by that? What do you say to business owners regarding that?
So in regards to scaling, what you want to do, you definitely want to grow the profits, but you don't want your costs to grow at the same rate, right? Because then
Mm,
you're not scaling. So I really try to caution and advise business owners to pay close attention to their expenses, to their costs. During the pandemic, we had supply chain issues. And for many business owners who only had one main supplier, they got really hard hit. So you really want to look at your business model, look at your costs and make sure where there's opportunity for efficiencies that you can
mm,
get that in place. You may want to have more than one major supplier in case something catastrophic happens that could impact your business. But definitely what tends to happen is as people are growing, if they're not paying attention to costs, right now we're in an inflationary period right now,
mhm,
then you could actually not be making any profits because your cost is rising just as much as your revenue, or in some cases it could be rising faster and you don't want that.
mhm,
So it's a really delicate balance that you have to pay close attention to. And then also you want to pay attention to pricing. If the demand for your services and products are going up, you want, where appropriate, make the, price adjustments where needed. If we're in an inflationary period like we are now, and the cost to produce your goods or deliver your services is increasing, then you want to make the appropriate adjustments because it will impact your bottom line. So it's just staying
mhm,
in tune to the environment and business and the changes that are impacting your customers and how that may impact you and your suppliers. It's a lot. It's a lot of things to
mhm,
keep track of.
mhm,
So it
mhm,
helps also if you build a team to help advise you professionally, help outsource things that you're not very good in, because you can't scale as a solo person. You can't do all the things in your business. And it may have
mhm,
started out that way, but
mhm.
as things get busier, as you get more and more capacity and clients, you're going to be unable to do it all in your business. So I always tell people to start identifying the types of staff, people, the mix of employees and contractors that you want to bring on the kind of culture that your business is going to adopt so that when the time comes, you're able to pivot and actually have people on board to help you grow and scale the business. So
Mm-hmm.
that also is a component as well. And, right now, a lot of businesses are experiencing difficulties finding good people,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we're having
Mm-hmm.
some disruptions in the labor market right now. I've even experienced that myself somewhat. So it can be challenging, when these global phenomenons is happening and we can't find the right people to put in the right roles.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to come up with different ways of filling those gaps, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it just sounds like. So, I mean, would it be fair to say that when someone is starting out, even if it's someone who's starting out, let's say they're online, they're selling services, and they may not even know where they're going with it. I mean, it seems like it would make a lot more sense for them to start out kind of having some idea of where they want to get to at a certain point. Um, do you think that that's really what they should be doing? And I say that because a lot of people may be thinking, I'm going to start a business, and they're thinking about today what they're going to do. They may not be
Right.
looking ahead as to where they want to get to at a certain point.
Absolutely. You definitely want to have a plan. You want to
Mm-hmm.
have a plan for the business. I'd always say, what do you want to do? What's your exit plan? Do you want to be in this business forever? Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
grow it to a certain level of revenues? So you always want to have a 12-month, a 5-year, plan for the business because things can happen really fast.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoke with many clients who didn't think the business would take off as fast as it did, so,
Mm-hmm.
which is a
Mm-hmm.
good problem to have, but you
Mm-hmm.
still want to have manageable growth,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to disappoint clients and customers because you just wasn't ready for the massive growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I always say, even if it's a side hustle, you want to have a plan for the business. You want to create goals and decide what it is that you really want to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And again, those seems to be points that aren't really emphasized as much as they should be. Because I've, seen, and I'm sure you have as well, where people are pushing this idea that you're just going to start and then you're going to get the six figures almost right away. And then dude, that's it. Like they don't tell you anything past that. So,
Right, right. And realistically, it doesn't quite happen like that.
hmm
If you are lucky enough to get seed funding early on, if you have some kind of innovation or you're a tech company, then that's one thing. But a lot of times people are bootstrapping, they're self-funding the business,
hmm
and all it takes is one mishap
hmm
that can redirect your resources to somewhere else and then the business may suffer, or one
hmm
catastrophic incident. And if you're underinsured or not insured at all. So, it takes careful planning, and time to really build a business. It really does. And that's the reality of it.
hmm
Does it happen sometimes to a few people? Of course, but I've talked to hundreds of business owners and it's just not an overnight thing.
hmm Yes, and that makes perfect sense. And as far as the, solopreneur who's out there um, wanting to start something or starting something and maybe thinking that they can do all these different jobs themselves. And what you said before is you really can't do that if you're looking to scale. But you have to start looking at bringing people into the business. And could you kind of talk a little bit more about that? What does someone do who maybe that person who finds that things are taking off and maybe they weren't planning on bringing someone in or people in yet. Is there any advice just to kind of help them to know what their next step should be?
Yes, I always say, if you're a solopreneur, start with getting an assistant,
Mm,
start taking some
mm,
of those administrative tasks off of your plate and onto someone who is skilled at doing these things, maybe can do them more efficiently, quickly. And so you can focus more on the core of your operations, growing your business. So I always say start there. That's a good place to start because then you'll find, okay, because most people, like I do too, consider my business my baby, and it's hard to just
Mhm.
turn it over, any parts of it, to anyone. But it's absolutely crucial that you start to do that. Now, well, sometimes you run into bad hires. Yes, it happens. You want to recover quickly and just, learn from the experience and then try it again, if it doesn't
Mhm.
work out. But you can only do so much if it's just you doing every part of the business. It's
Mhm.
just not feasible at all. So I remember when I first started out, and I didn't even have any clients at the time. My business coach was like, I want you to hire a VA. And I was like, what? I don't, what? I didn't understand it because I was like, I'm not even making any money yet. But it taught me a valuable lesson because I
Mhm.
was able to offload things that, first of all, I wasn't very good in doing, number one. And number two, I was able to redirect my focus on things more like business development that I needed
Mhm.
to get in strategic planning. Those are the things that really needed my focus at the time. And I always think back at that period, and I didn't understand it at the time, but now I do because it really kind of set the stage for me to start the hiring process in other areas of my business. And it kind of removed some of that resistance and reluctance that people may have to invite people in to their business, but it's
Mhm.
crucial. It's absolutely crucial. I
Mhm.
always try to tell people to do like an organizational chart. How do you want your business structure to look like? What roles you want to have for people to fill and what
Mhm.
requirements, skill sets and things like that you think are critical for your business. And then I always try to encourage people to talk to others in your same industry and
Mhm.
try to get advice or collaborate or get some tips from people. Most times business owners are open to share their experiences, that they've
Mhm.
had if they've been in the business longer than you or have had some unique experiences that maybe you haven't encountered yet.
Mhm. Yes, that's true. And you could definitely learn from what other people have done who are doing what you're working at and what you want to work at.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that's really a great idea. And it's true, a lot of times people may be reluctant to give up a bit of control to someone coming in. And also, as you mentioned, sometimes you're not sure if you're hiring the right person. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, that can be that could be a little problematic, I think, too. So there's a lot of things to consider, but at the same time, you really can't do every single thing by yourself. It's just um, not really possible. And as far as, you mentioned before exit plans, could you just go into a little bit more detail about that? Because again, that's something else that I don't always hear about in terms of like say online when people were kind of talking about they're going to start a business and they're going to do this and that, a lot of times that doesn't really get mentioned. So when you say that, what does that mean exactly?
Right. So what I think of is what is your ultimate goal for the business outside of yourself? Do
Mm,
you want to sell it at some point in time? Do you want to build the business up to be a very valuable asset that someone is going to pay you money for? Or do
mm-hmm,
you want to keep it in the family and maybe pass it on to your kids or if you're partnering with someone, what does that look like? Are you gonna, sell shares to the partner and their family? Just how are you gonna exit the business knowing that perhaps you don't want to stay in it until death, right?
mm-hmm,
If you want to
mm-hmm,
retire or simply, or a few times people have come to me, it's like, I wasn't even thinking about selling it, but I got approached with this incredible offer. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So
mm-hmm,
that can happen too. And so you just want to kind of think about, what does that look like in terms of the future? Do
mm-hmm,
you want to stay in the business? Do you want to keep it in the family? Do you want to sell it? Um, my goal, I knew starting out that I wanted to sell the business at a certain point. I knew that
mm-hmm.
from the very beginning. So and that's why I created the name that I have, and it's not really my name. You know what I
Mm-hmm,
mean?
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
yeah, that's essentially what I mean when I say about an exit plan or succession
mm-hmm,
plan. You hear that term a lot in estate planning,
mm-hmm,
as well, because, and that should be a part of your estate planning. If something happens to you or you're incapacitated, who are you going to designate to step in and kind of take charge or run the business,
mm-hmm,
and definitely, at some point, if you only want to spend 20 years or 5 years, however long, or if, like several people have, shared with me that they weren't even in the market for selling, but they, got offered this incredible deal that they couldn't pass up. So
mm-hmm,
start having that mindset and start thinking about, what if that does happen? Because a lot of times what people do is they'll take the funding that they get from the sale and they start another business.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Maybe something that they're more passionate about, or a project that kind of, was born from doing civic activities or nonprofit activities. So a lot of times people use that funding to start other businesses or nonprofits or something that's meaningful to them that they'll stick with maybe through retirement or what have you. So,
mm-hmm,
you can
mm-hmm,
do a lot, or it can fund your retirement, you know?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So,
So when people start their business, and it sounds as though they really should think about where they're going in terms of what kind of business that they're starting. And I guess what kind of business also in terms of, like, say, if they're starting a corporation or an LLC or,
mhm.
are those, it sounds like those are also decisions they should make from the beginning, or is that something that they can transition into as they go and say, well, oh, I started this way, but I like to turn this into something else.
Now they can start with one business structure and
Mm-hmm.
change it. A lot of times people start off as a solo proprietor,
Mm-hmm.
and they can easily transition into an LLC, single member. Now for tax purposes, federal tax, they'll still consider you as a, solo, proprietor. So, but, if you take on a partner, now you're a partnership, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
choose the way you want to be taxed. So you can be taxed as an S corp or a partnership. You get to designate.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously C corporations are, more attractive because they're an entity in and of itself. However, S corps have a lot of the benefits of the C Corp, but without all of the compliance that's required for a
Mm-hmm.
C corporation. And there are some, you're not getting double tax with an S corporation as well. So
Mm-hmm.
people do have choices. You don't have to stick with, the business structure that you start out with. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times people start out with LLCs, and that's perfectly fine. Here in Texas, it's very easy to create. They're, mandated by state. So whatever state that your business is in or that you choose to register it in, you'd have to, research what those requirements are. But it's a very popular designation because it's very flexible, because you can
Mm-hmm.
remain an LLC, and then for tax purposes, you could be taxed as an S corp or a C corp.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's really good for entrepreneurs, business owners to understand that they can really research what's the best way to go, and even if they start off in one way, that, if their goals change or if the situation changes with the business, and they do have that flexibility to make some different
Right.
decisions. Um,
Absolutely.
Also, and make sure that they have professionals like yourself. They can help them to make the best decisions for them. That's so, so important. And,
Right.
as I keep emphasizing, a lot of this information isn't really what people hear out here when they're just starting out, particularly in the online space. They're not really hearing these things that will really help them make some plans um, for the future. So, I think these are things they need to have in mind. But, Angela, right now, could you please share where the listeners can find out more about you?
So you can find out more at my website is www.stellarledgers.com. And then my personal website is angelarandolph.com where you can learn more about me. I'm on all the socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find me there at Angela the CFO.com. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Wonderful. So you were saying before you also have courses like to offer, or?
Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
last year I launched a tax compliance course. That was my first one. I'm going to relaunch it again this fall, and I'm working on a financial roadmap for entrepreneurs. I am revamping that, and I plan to have that ready to go for my financial coaching program. And that's really geared towards startups and solo preneurs that are trying to understand their finances, one, and then both personal and business financial statements, and then help them create goals and measure the goals and help them with QuickBooks setup is also
Mm-hmm.
a part of the program so that they can manage it themselves until the business gets to a point where they're ready to turn it over
Mm-hmm.
to an accountant. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that sounds like those are wonderful courses for business owners to take advantage of and really learn some of the things that are key for business. It's not just all the other
Right,
stuff that
right,
people hear about, and they don't really get to the meat of it, the things that are really going to help the business move forward. But I think, again, as I
right.
keep saying, those are the things I think we just don't often hear enough about when it comes to the solopreneur, um, who may be, learning a lot from online, but not really getting that whole piece of information. I think that maybe other people may get, who maybe have more experience, or they're opening different kinds of businesses, and they may get that. But I think the solopreneur really needs to understand that as well, um, when they're starting out. So obviously, the past few years have been a huge challenge for
Mm-hmm.
business owners, and based on that, as you were saying before, you could have something happen that you definitely didn't plan for, that just kind of throws everything out, that you've been working on. So, as far as, like, I'm sure, the pandemic and everything, what are, some things that you would advise business owners as far as trying to manage um, these things that come up? I know there's only so much we can do, but seeing what has happened, and how a lot of businesses were hit really hard, is there any kind of advice that you regularly give to small business owners going forward?
Yes, I definitely try to encourage and advise business owners to be ready to pivot and be
Mm,
flexible. They may have to do business a different way, due to restrictions, local or national. They may need to go where their clients or customers are. Several of my clients had to transition to online or
hmm
telehealth, 100% telehealth, where they were seeing patients in office.
hmm
And
hmm
so just being open to that and then also taking advantage of funding opportunities. I don't think I've
hmm
ever seen so many grants
hmm
opportunities
Mhm.
within the last year or so
Mhm.
than I've ever have, so just taking advantage of funding that may be free to you, you don't have to
Mhm.
pay back because everything helps,
Mhm. Mhm.
just staying in tune to what's going on that may impact your business directly, seeking advice from professionals,
Mhm.
even if it's just a consultation to kind of get some insight on a direction that you should go. I don't see enough. I see business owners talking to each other a lot, but
Mhm.
not so much seeking out professional help, in the areas that they need, answers to their questions to.
Mhm.
So that's what I would advise people to do.
Mhm. Yeah, because I'm sure you have definitely heard a lot of stories from, definitely with the COVID shutdowns and just the changes that came out of that. As you said, a lot of things moving to online and everybody wasn't really prepared
Mm.
for
Right.
that. So,
That's so true.
yeah, that changes a lot of how some people were doing business and then how does that get managed and how do people introduce these things that they really hadn't had to think about. So taking all that into consideration, um the particularly the woman entrepreneur who's out there now who may be doing a side hustle, thinking about it or thinking about diving into a business, is there any advice that you would give them right now, especially if they may be feeling a little nervous about starting something with things having had been so volatile for business?
I would definitely say plan, save your money, put money aside because this is what people don't talk enough about. It takes money to run a business. You're going to
Mm,
constantly be spending money on something, and that's even before you get your first customer,
mhm,
So
mhm,
you definitely want to be prepared for that. A lot of times people are surprised at how much money that they are having to put in the business and just be patient, be
mhm,
patient, make sure you're doing all the things that you need to do in terms of setting it up correctly, and reaching out, make sure that you are in compliance because you don't want to have IRS issues starting out. You want to
mm,
make sure
mhm.
that you're keeping up with your filings and even state filings as well. And that, so you don't have that hanging over your head. And then, just be patient. It takes time and give yourself some grace, because we can be
Mhm.
our own worst critic. We can be harder on ourselves. And
Mhm.
this it's especially if this is your first business, and you want to give yourself a chance to learn things, to make mistakes, and recover from them. So
Mhm.
that's what I
Mhm.
would advise.
Mhm. Yeah, that sounds like fantastic advice because yeah, you're right. A lot of people don't realize how much money something will take just to get it going. I think
Hmm.
those are things that I think often get downplayed, um, unfortunately. And then people don't realize that they needed, more money to get going, and then they're in a position where they feel they have to shut down or they can't move forward or they start to panic. Um, so just having that
Right.
idea to start with, it seems to me that that would make a lot of sense. And if they're starting out, would should they automatically start with some kind of software for tracking or use Excel or what should
I'm
that
a fan of software. I'm a big fan of software, and there's so many out there that are user friendly. Of course, I like I like QuickBooks, I like Zero, but there's many
hmm
others out there that you can connect your bank account, your business bank account to, and it'll bring in all of your transactions and you can categorize them. This is something you can do weekly,
hmm
monthly. You don't have to overwhelm yourself trying to get it all done
hmm
at the end of the year for the whole year. I wouldn't advise that. That could be too much. You know, But yeah, there's so many out there that are user friendly and that they have apps that you can download on your phone. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times people are able to send invoices from their phone and
Mm-hmm.
take payments. The technology has just improved so much
Mm-hmm.
from when I started back in 2017. So definitely see what's out there and see what resonates with you. And you'll be thankful for it years down the line when you get ready to, bring on an investor or do your loan application.
Mm-hmm.
You won't have to scramble and try to get historical numbers, and then it
Mm-hmm.
also helps you determine how the business is doing. You get to see, am I making a profit? Am I bringing in enough revenue? Or my costs rising? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're tracking that information on a consistent
Mm-hmm.
basis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times you could be spending a lot of money, but you don't really know because you're not tracking it. You're not watching it.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a great point. 'Cause I definitely could, remember times when I, was doing freelance writing, and then you're kind of, at first, I'm just figuring out how much money you have to bring in, and um, being really surprised coming out of corporate, because when you're, a lot of times you're working for someone else, you don't understand all the ways that your money, um, is coming in. And what I mean is, what you're getting paid on the job is also including benefits, including all these other things.
Right.
But
That's
then when
right.
time for you to price things out, it's totally different. So,
Right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Because if you're billing, and people are paying by credit card, you have merchant fees,
mm,
if you
mhm,
choose to absorb the fees, most people do. What happens if a person doesn't pay on time, but you have
mhm,
staff that you have to pay, so you may have to adjust your credit terms, you may have to take a deposit up front,
mhm.
so these things you'll learn quickly. you know, about the policies and things that you have to put in place for your business,
Mhm.
and you should set the terms. I don't encourage you allowing the customer to set the terms. You know?
No, that's not a good idea. That's so true. Not a
So,
good idea.
yeah.
Yeah, there's those things that that kind of wakes you up and you realize, wow, okay, I don't really know anything about this right now. So this is a whole different
hmm
situation than I'm used to. So yeah, you realize that you have a lot to learn, but it's not like you don't have assistance out here that you can get, in order for you to
Right.
take those steps. And that's really great to know. So Angela, this of course, is a huge topic. There's definitely a lot, that we could cover, but for right now, do you have any final thoughts to share with the listeners?
I would just share, keep the faith, keep going. Don't be discouraged. We've been through some challenging times through the last 2 years, but more and more people are opening up businesses, and I love to hear that. More people have the
Mm,
entrepreneurial spirit. And, people, I think, as a result of the pandemic, are really choosing to be more intentional about their lives and what they really want to do. And that's great. I love that.
mm-hmm,
And so, don't be afraid to step out and do something that you haven't done before. And if you make a mistake, it's okay. You can learn from the experience and get help when you need help. And
mm-hmm.
then continue to thrive. So that's what I would leave your listeners with.
That's great. That's wonderful and very encouraging. For anybody who's wondering what they should do and, how things look out here. It's really good to know that people are still starting their businesses and still, making that leap. So, Angela, I want to thank you again for joining us today. This has been really informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, everyone, I know that you enjoyed this and you got a lot out of it. And Angela's links will be in the show notes so that you can check out her website and everything else that she offers, and connect with her on social media as well. So once again, it's been Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you again next time. Bye bye.